Hi everyone, we're here at the Hyundai showroom in Damansara and we're here to check out the latest product from Hyundai. And drumroll please, it's this. I don't know if you can see it, but that is the new Hyundai Kona. Now the B segment crossover market is very competitive right now, and the Kona will need to be very good to even stand a chance against the competition. So is it any good? We're going to test drive it right now, so let's go. So I'm sure by now you've seen lots of photos of the Hyundai Kona. You know, you've seen the design and the interior and so on. And so you also know that the car is available in 3 variants and also with 2 power plants as well. You've got a 2-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine as well as the 1.6-litre turbocharged engine. We don't know much about pricing, but we do know it will start from around 115,000 ringgit. So what do you think of the Kona's looks? It's quite funky, isn't it? You've seen lots of cars with split headlights now, but this car has split taillights as well. You also got things like the cascading grille and lots of body cladding to give this car more of a rugged look, and overall this car looks quite funky. I would like to point out that this is not the facelifted model introduced globally this year, but that car is only going to production later this year, so it's not even out yet in the global markets. And honestly, this car looks so different from its competitors that I don't think it matters. This car still looks very fresh and very modern. And also the 2-litre high-spec model as well as the 1.6-litre model comes with very nice looking 18-inch two-tone alloy wheels. They look really nice with the car. Now inside again, it's a very modern looking interior. This wraparound design looks very nice. There's not a lot of soft touch plastics. Everything is all hard over here. But that's to be expected of this class, and you do have some nice leather on the panels down here. You also got a 7-inch floating touchscreen over here with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard. As far as specs goes, the highest spec 2-litre model as well as the 1.6-litre models, they're quite identical in terms of spec. You've got a head-up display, you've got powered seats, which are very nice, and they even come with lumbar support, which is not very common in the segment. You've got single-zone climate control, no rear aircon vents, unfortunately. Now the Kona is a little bit on the small side of the class. You know, it's less than 4.2 meters long. So, you know, it's not quite as spacious as something like a Honda HR-V, but you do get a decent amount of rear legroom. Headroom is also fine. The boot is 335 litres, which doesn't sound like much, but it is enough, and it is able to carry 3 people's worth of backpacks and equipment. So I don't think you have a problem there. Safety-wise, the Kona, at least the 1.6-litre model, has got a lot going for it. It's got autonomous emergency braking and lane departure warning. It also has rear cross traffic alert and blind spot monitoring, which the 2-litre higher spec model comes with as well. Now, apart from things like the Proton X70, this car's main rivals doesn't have even autonomous emergency braking. The Honda HR-V doesn't have it, the Mazda CX-3 doesn't have it, and the Toyota CHR doesn't have it either. So this is an open goal for Hyundai, especially if they manage to price it right. The car I'm driving in right now is the 2-litre model. It makes 149 horsepower and 179 Newton meters of torque. Now you might think 150 horsepower doesn't sound like much, and it isn't. And that's because that engine is an Atkinson cycle engine, and that prioritizes more the fuel economy rather than performance. The engine is this big in this car because it can deliver better fuel economy while delivering a competitive amount of power and torque in this segment. The one thing that defines this naturally aspirated engine is that it's very smooth. The engine's very smooth, it makes a very creamy and nice engine noise, and generally the transmission works in a very seamless manner. So it's quite a comfortable car to drive day in and day out. What it isn't is fast. The engine does take a little bit of a while to get going, especially if you've got 4 people and some luggage. The gearbox is also a little bit hesitant to respond, but once it gets up to speed, it gets going fairly effortlessly. That's sort of par for the course of this segment. You know, you don't have really very fast and very powerful engines in the segment. So in that sense, this is not too bad. The car we're driving in is the 1.6-litre TGDI engine. As you can see in some of the shots, it does have a very eye-catching wrap around it, and that's to hide the fact that this car is actually the one that was shown in the Kuala Lumpur International Motor Show 2 years ago. This car is not the local spec. It is painted in green, which is a colour that's not coming to Malaysia. You've still got some quite nice bright colours. You've got blue, red, and in this 1.6-litre model, you've also got a ceramic blue with a contrasting roof. so that I think will look very nice. In terms of performance, this 1.6 litre turbocharged engine makes 177 horsepower and 265 Newton meters of torque, and that gets sent through a 7-speed dual clutch transmission to the front wheels as well. Now this is a dry dual clutch transmission, so there might be some people who are wondering about the reliability of this transmission. However, this is the same gearbox that you find in the Veloster Turbo, and we haven't heard any reliability issues with that. So I don't think you need to worry that much. Now on paper, this car sounds quite fast. It will get from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 7.9 seconds, which isn't too bad for this sort of car. And once you get up to speed, this does feel like a very powerful engine. You step on the throttle, it gives you quite a decent amount of torque, and you'll be going about at quite a fast rate. However, at lower speeds, it is the transmission that spoils the fun a little bit. You step on the throttle, and the gearbox does take a while to give you the right gear. It does make this car a little bit frustrating to drive in stop-start traffic, especially against cutthroat Malaysian traffic. However, this engine does make quite a lot of torque, so it's not really such a problem if you use enough throttle. And again, like I said, once you get up to speed, it really isn't an issue at all. In terms of refinement, the Kona is par for the course in the segment. But like I said, the engine in the 2 litre makes quite a smooth and creamy noise, so it's not something you get quite annoyed with. The 1.6 litre, it does sound a little bit rough, and there is a little bit of wind and road noise at speed, but it's not something that you'll be complaining about. You know, this car will go through long distances just fine. Now, whichever model you go for, the Kona has the same suspension, which is to say it has McPherson struts at the front and a torsion beam at the rear. The ride is a little bit firm, but at the front, it does feel like it rounds off the bumps very well. It's not too crashy, it doesn't feel too bumpy when you go over bumps. So in that sense, if you're sitting in front, it's not too bad. At the rear, it's actually quite firm, and it does crash over bumps a little bit more at the back. So if your passengers are a little bit susceptible to motion sickness, they're much better off sitting at the front. Now I haven't driven this car very long because, you know, it's a very short drive, it's a quick drive after all. So we can't really test out the handling, but as far as we can tell, the steering is quite accurate, it does track quite well, and it does resist roll quite well. Overall though, this is quite a competent little car. So if you're looking for a small, compact SUV, you can't really go much wrong with this car. So is the Kona a good car? Well, the simple answer is yes. It is good to drive, and it looks like it belongs in a K-pop music video. However, as I said in the beginning of the film, this is a very competitive market, and the Kona is wading in against some serious competition. And of course, we can't talk about a B-segment crossover without talking about the elephant in the room, the Proton X50, which should be quite a bit cheaper than this car. As it is, the bigger X70 is already making life difficult for these SUVs, and the smaller, cheaper model is certainly not going to make it any easier. However, that should not discount the fact that this is a very good car, like I said earlier, and if priced correctly, it can really take the fight to its more traditional competition. So if you're looking for a practical, compact SUV that is not made locally, then this really should be on your shortlist. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and stay safe.